Hit record then. So welcome everybody. This is the Wednesday drop-in discussion that happens as part of the Europe Leaders Learning Community every third week of the month. And my name is Miranda, and I live in Spain, where it is beginning to warm up. So it's not very nice wearing masks when it starts to get warm. That's what I'm here to tell you. And I'm here today with Joe and Alket, who are joining me as part of a panel discussion, a sort of informal discussion around our theme of the month. And I'm going to get them to introduce themselves before I introduce our theme. So Joe, where are you and what do you do? Obviously your name is Joe.
Yes, my name's Joe. I'm Joe Plummer. I'm currently in West Sussex in the United Kingdom. We moved back from YWAM Chiang Mai in Thailand last summer. So I've been back in YWAM Europe just under a year. So this is the first time I've taken part in something like this. And for the last 20 years, Mark and I, that's my husband, have been involved in resourcing, training, coming alongside people who are integrating business with mission. So we're part of a global network on business's mission. And also we've been walking alongside YWAMers, integrating business and ministry together for the last 20 years or so. So yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's great having you. Welcome back to Europe, but welcome back to England. Alket, welcome.
Thank you.
Where are you and what are you doing?
So everyone who was been in 2017 while we were gathering in Tours, Albania, remember me? I'm Albanian, from Albania, leading the base in Tours, and for 9 years living in Albania, and for 5 years I think we are part of the core team in Central Europe, and I have experience too in the business world because for 10 years I had before my small business, and I'm married with three children.
Great. Well, it's really good to have you. Thanks for joining us. So every month, as part of the Europe Leaders Learning Community, we take a theme and we invite people from around Europe to write articles and create talks as part of seeking to strengthen one another as leaders in the region. And this month is the first of a series of 3. And the series is about leadership pitfalls. What are those things in our leadership journeys that can sort of trip us up? And we've named them primarily as money, sex and power. So we're going to go for the jugular between May and July. And we're going to start today with the topic of money. And there was some really great material up on the website for those who got a chance to take a look at that. So I don't know, I wonder how many people who saw that material thought, oh, well, we live by faith. Money's not an issue for us. I don't know if there's anyone else out there who might be thinking like that. And as part of the resources that went up on the website, Landa Cope and Terry Sherman, who's with us on the call now, talked about this idea of living by faith. What is it to live by faith? And Landa pointed out that all followers of Jesus are called to live by faith. And Terry said in her article, in her talk, we all kind of express that in different ways, depending on what our calling is. So I don't know if there's anything in particular that strikes you, Alket or Joe, when you think about this question of living by faith, what that means for us and how that might impact on how we relate to money.
Yeah, I just like what Landa said about that everybody lives by faith. It's not a particular strategy, it's a posture towards the Lord. And so I think when it comes to YWAMers and money, of course, our primary way, as Landa said, is that we do engage in raising support and that does have a powerful impact on our networks of supporters and prayer that we have, and it's very integrated. But there are many ways that YWAMers get money, get income. We get, some people might have passive income, they might have pensions, or they might have properties, but primarily it's about raising up a network of friends, of churches and supporters that will pray for us, that will provide for financial needs. But that is just one way of living by faith. So that I really like hearing that very clearly.
Yes. Anything to add to that, Alket?
I think I will bring this after more testimony and what is inside that I learned. When I was a young Christian, really, and Albania just came out from the communist time, was really struggling life. And I was only son in home when we live, grandparents, my two sisters, my parents, and only my father working at the time, but just was not enough. And I was new Christian, and I remember, I think it was the first time that I was fasting. And I said to God, I believe you call me to serve to you, but how I will provide for myself, for money, and for my family, and how to live. And all the day I'm fasting, and in the afternoon, really, I heard clear that you will serve to me all your life, and I will take care for you and your family. I know you like to do business, but in every 3 months, I will close your business. That was I heard. Really, 27 years ago, I think. But do you know, that is my security in all my life now with the money. I enter in many things in life that word is in me. So what I'm saying is, yes, we live by faith, but we need to ask God what is personal word that he has for each of us. And in that we stay and we live by that. That is my first thing that I experienced with God.
Thank you. I love that you shared that. I love the way that this connection between the word of God to us personally and how we relate to money, particularly in the immediate circumstances that we face kind of next, because I'm sure that even as we engage with this topic, there are many of us who have particular things in our minds with regards to money and with regards to faith and trusting God. It was interesting to me what Florin said about money in his article, that the way we relate to money can be like a mirror that it kind of shows us or exposes, if you like, who we really are, our values, our fears. And that seems to connect for me, Alket, with what you said about, having a word from God to kind of stand on and anchor us. Did you guys have anything that came to your mind as you were thinking about this idea of money as a mirror, which kind of reveals more than, just dollars and cents? It reveals something more to us.
I mean, I really like what Alket just said, because I think that we often get really fixated on strategies, like how am I going to get my money? And especially the area I work in business as mission, and it's a really big area. But whatever we're doing, whatever ministry strategy God is calling us to, I think a high value is that we hear God's voice and then obey him. And it's that journey that he wants to take us on in the faith journey. And Landa shared a little bit about this as well, is that God, especially for base leaders or people leading big teams, he'll often grow our faith through the beginnings of our journey, or speak a particular word to us, which will be really unique. So we can't kind of reduce what we're talking about to a particular methodology, methodology of we've got to do this number of prayer letters and then the money will just flow in. It's about walking with God in this journey and I think in terms of being a mirror, it's a really excellent way of being discipled in this growing by faith, and God will often stretch us, won't he, in this area of money, and not maybe provide in the way that we hoped or wanted to keep us focused on him, and not the not the donor, not the method that we're using, not the strategy, but to really just keep us focused on him, and our hearts soft towards him. And I think that's, for me, I think it's a good area of discipleship, because it can stretch our faith.
I love that. I wonder if we could actually spotlight Terry and bring her onto the, I mean, she's on the call, but if you, Rosen, if you could spotlight Terry, and we just invite your voice as well, Terry. It's lovely to have you with us. Thank you so much for your talk, which was fabulous. I wonder if you have anything to add here about this, because I imagine, Terry, I don't know if this is true, but I could imagine that because people know that you teach in this area, they might come to you looking for a methodology. Do you have anything to add about this kind of tension, if you like, between methodology and discipleship, you know, journeying with God versus wanting a formula? What comes to mind for you?
Oh yeah. Well, many things. Indeed, people do tend to think, oh, she's going to teach about raising support, so now we're going to learn a method. And actually, I don't even go into method at all until I cover the biblical foundation, and then I cover the spiritual dynamics that come with money before I ever talk about practicals. If this whole idea of money as a mirror, I haven't read that article yet, but I will get to it. But I have a teaching called Money as a Mirror that comes from Randy Alcorn's book, Money, Possessions, and Eternity. And one of the statements he makes in that book, which has just stuck with me, is the way we deal with our money and our possessions is a direct reflection of our spiritual condition.
Wow.
So outwardly, if you look at how people live and deal with their money, it will already show you what's happening in their hearts. And it's true for every single one of us. So it is a mirror. It's something that will reflect back to us. Am I trusting God? Do I really believe he owns everything? Am I really following after him, or is there something else that I'm doing here? Is my security in him, or is it in how many partners I can get on my team, et cetera, et cetera? So I love this topic because of the fact that it bears our hearts and our souls and puts us in a place of vulnerability with God, and it brings us all back down to the same place.
Yeah, thank you. Alket, you look like you're gonna you're gonna add something. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's another. I said the first thing was to hear personally from God. The second thing is speaking by faith. And again, I will bring in a little testimony from my life. So I finished the DS in '95, but I went back in my hometown and I started to be pastor of the church, a young boy. It's just the beginning of the first year's Christianity in Albania. So I'm starting to do it, ministry in the church, but my father waiting for me to, so where's your salary? You need to help your family. So nothing, 1, 2, 3, 4 months, nothing happened. And one day, as we discussed, I don't know what I said. I said, okay, this month, in the end of the month, I will have an envelope, the salary is $70. Most okay as a salary that year. I said that by faith, but to say the truth, after a week, I said, wow, what I said, that is not happened, the thing. But really, in the last month, someone came with an envelope, $70, and said that will be your salary. Now for every month.
Wow.
So I'm bringing that yes, we hear from the Lord, but sometimes we need to speak out by faith. And God see our motivation, God see our heart, and He will do that. So that is another thing.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
I think that issue of motivation is like the key thing, because in YWAM sometimes, or Christians in general, we get confused. We think that like money is the root of all evil, but it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And we have to handle money. You know, I love what Landa said about God he's about goodness, and part of his goodness is physical resources. We need resources. We need homes and food, and we need money to be able to flourish as human beings. And so it's the way that we handle those resources that's the important thing. So in YWAM, I think it's really, when we deal with money, one thing that we wrestle with a lot in the business as mission community is how do we do that in business and protect our YWAM values, the things that are core to our YWAM identity. And sometimes normal business operation and protecting our YWAM values kind of can clash a little bit. And I think it's difficult because you can't, it comes down to the motivation of the individual YWAMer or the YWAM leader. And that's something that you can't see from the outside. That's something you have to walk together in discipleship, in an accountable relationship, because you can hide all that stuff, whether you're in a business, whether you're in an orphanage ministry, whether you're doing communications in YWAM.
Yeah.
You can get sidetracked and drift away from your ministry or your focus because of money. So, and it's all down to the sort of the heart of the individual person. You can't have rules or guidelines about that. It's to do with the inner motivation and why we're here doing what we're hearing. So one value we have to protect in YWAM is that we're here because we heard God's voice and we're obeying Him, and we're in our ministry because we feel that's how God has led us, rather than for financial gain. And that's kind of core to our identity, that volunteerism that we're here. But then what happens when you start paying people, because you have to in business, sometimes you have to employ people. So what happens then? And so I think it's down to individual motivation a lot. And you can't have guidelines for that. You have to disciple people through it and have a good accountability.
Yeah, so that's my question. I think one of my big questions as I looked at the different resources on the website this month was to do with how much are we really talking about this? Because it feels as though discipleship, for our formation as God's people, requires quite a lot of open dialogue. It requires vulnerability and being open to having questions asked and talking together about, these are the tensions that we experience in this particular arena. And my observation is, yes, we talk about, principles of fundraising, but do we talk about these heart things of, okay, let's talk about how we feel that, this person has a small apartment and this person has a bigger apartment, or let's talk about how we, to what extent do we see that happening, and what do you guys think about that? Like, is there an invitation maybe to kind of push into some of these things when it comes to our discipleship?
I think, you have to work those things out in relationship, and they reveal a lot about your heart. Why is it that you want a bigger apartment? Is it because you want to show hospitality, or you're jealous of other people? It's about people's journey with the Lord. And I think it's about recognizing when those things come up in your life, what is underneath that feeling, what is underneath it. We had to wrestle. My husband, actually, this is a little story from us, left YWAM for a little while, and we both joined in our early 20s, but then when he came into YWAM again, we were in our 30s with 2 young kids. All our contemporaries were buying houses. They had nice big houses. They were on their second house. They were in the friends that we grew up in, we were in a different stage of life, and we had to ask ourselves again, what is really important to us? You know, what is God saying to us? Why do we feel this sense that we've got to be on the property ladder, or we've got to, or we've, our feelings about money were really tested at that point, because and then you have to walk through that journey with the Lord together. What is underneath that feeling of envy or disappointment, and then is it pride, is it what is it, anxiety, unbelief? So it's a journey that everyone's on with the Lord. So I think I've made the same point about 3 times.
So would you say then, Joe, and I'd be interested to hear from you as well, Terry, would you say then that's a very personal thing, or would you say that there's an invitation for us as communities to kind of stretch ourselves into these kinds of conversations in ways that would open us up to being discipled, maybe?
I think that we really need to talk a lot together about how we're impacted by money. It's a topic that is shunned by everyone, not just the church. Cultures, in many ways, they have their taboos about money, and we've all been raised in cultures that have taboos about money, and families that have their own unique taboos that come with the culture or come with a family culture. And here we come in YWAM, together, living more together and trying to learn, what does it mean to live in community and share things and share life. So I definitely see it as something that gets shoved under the table, and we don't want to talk about it. And that's, I mentioned it in my 10-minute talk about the spirit of mammon. And when I started to learn more about how we are deceived about money by a demonic principality, which wants us to idolize money and bow down to it and give power to it, it really has just helped me discern some things a lot more in my own life, and help other people discern some of the struggles that they go through. So it's definitely part of our discipleship. It's a heart issue. It's touching deep things in our identity, and all of those things. So I say let's get it up and out in the open and talk about it more, guys.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in the small team, so I've just been part of a small team for the last 11 years, and I think Alket's got a small team in Albania. I think in that context, you must talk about it. Right. So I was just interested in how do they address that in his team, Endurance.
So we are 8 staff now. Some are for English, some are Albanian. And to say the truth, that all the time for Albanian staff is struggling to raise support, because still it's not that mindset that people can bless from your country as a missionary in your country. And to say the truth, I'd had through different years Albanian staff that they stay 1 or 2 years with us, and after they left. For different issue, not for that, but one of that was that thing. But every time when we speak in our team meetings, I have expression that I'm saying we need to spend our money how we spend our time. So the idea is how I spend the day, and that is reflecting too how worthy and how good I'm spending money to. Because it's connection there. And another thing that I want to bring up is how really we trust the word of Lord in the Bible when he said that seek first the kingdom and everything will come. or where is your heart, there will be your richnesses. So are things that we need to discuss absolutely, because yes, as I'm coming from a East country that left the communism, it's easy sometimes for East Europe to think, oh, the Westerners, they have bigger economy, bigger salary, maybe the church are very healthy, they give 10%, so Westerns can be really supported by their church, by their people, but how is going that in the East country or in a Balkan country? That is something that we need to deal in a faith, in a hearing, and trust in the Lord, really.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. We're going to have a little time out just here. Terry, thank you so much for joining us, and please continue to add any questions or comments into the chat. We're going to switch you out for Sharon, who has joined us, I believe, from Harpenden. There she is.
Yeah.
Hi, Sharon.
Hello, everybody.
It's good to have you
Hi.
with us. Thanks for joining
Sharon.
us.
Yep.
How's the weather in Harpenden today?
It's beautiful, actually, today.
Oh, good.
Nice and sunny.
Beautiful weather in southern England. That's good to hear.
We just had sleet, so
Oh,
I don't know what's
just
going
down
on
the
here.
road.
but-
That was yesterday, Joe.
That sounds about right. So, yeah, we're talking really right now just about the discipleship, the formation that happens within us in the ways that we relate to money. One of the things that I was struck by was, I mean, I could listen to Landa for, days. But in Landa's talk, she talked about the fact that there are people, mentioning no names, because I'm sure there's none of them on the call today, who bury their head in the sand when it comes to money. Let's just hope it all kind of works out. And I think some of the things that Terry mentioned about the ways in which we pick things up from our families of origin, from our social context, from our geographical context, which contribute to that. Yeah, did that strike any of you guys, or is that something you've seen in your experience personally and in YWAM? This thing of, it's just too difficult. Let's just keep our heads down and hope that it all figures itself out.
Yeah, I tend to come from a family like that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I'm married to a husband who's not. But I love what Landa said about doing the work.
Yes.
And this comes in when we talk about business's mission as well. We must apply good principles when it comes to money management. There are kind of, we wouldn't expect to go to the top of a building and jump off, pray and jump off, because we know that there is the laws of gravity. Well, there are principles about managing money and doing good business, and so we need to understand those and be good stewards of the resources and apply good accounting practices. Love that it was really practical on that.
Yes.
That we can't just go, oh well, spiritualize it completely, while holding intention that God does supernaturally supply our needs and come. But there are natural things about dealing with money that we have to respect. We can, and John gave a great, if you haven't watched that either, watch that, because there are some great principles of how to avoid like pitfalls. I feel like he covered loads of those. Just have good practices and apply these sensible principles so you don't run into conflicts of interest. So that you can know what money is yours personally and what money is the basis, for instance. There are some very simple different responsibilities, so one person isn't kind of managing everything. So there's so we need to kind of hold this tension of between yes, God is supernaturally supplying our needs, but we need to be good stewards as well. And for that, we have to face up to things and not just bury our heads in the sand and apply good methods.
And that's not always easy, is it? The facing up to things part.
Right.
There's a question for you in the chat there, Joe, and I'm just going to let you respond to that in the chat.
Well, I feel like I'm talking a lot, so
no, it's
while
good. I'm
reading
going to
that,
ask
Sharon, I don't know. Does Sharon
no,
wanna weigh
that's
in?
great. You do your chat response by by chat, and I'll ask Sharon. What's your
Okay.
experience, Sharon,
Good,
of this
okay.
burying your head in the sand mentality when it comes to finances?
Yes, I have definitely seen that and experienced that in multiple locations within YWAM, especially if you have one that has different school leaders, you know, and one school leader will be on it, budget, you know, keeping track of every single detail. And then the other one is like, I'm not good with numbers and here's my change kind of thing. So yeah, I think the thing that I have seen and has become reality is that it is just acknowledging that we all definitely come with a different worldview about finances. And that's something as a mission we have to take into account based on family, culture, nations. You know, I come from a family where we did track money pretty well and we're taught to budget and things like that, but I could end up with a co-leader, someone who has none of those skills.
Yes, and it sounds as though those places of difference are exactly the opportunity to have these kind of discipling conversations. Not that everyone has to do it the same way as one or the other, but that we actually talk about what's going on there for us. Alket, do you have another story for us, or maybe something that you'd like to share about how you've seen this happen on teams?
So this is I'm the guy story guy. So I will start first in this way. So I married 23 years ago, and with wonderful wife who knows her, Alma. And we are just a young couple. So first 3 months, we just took money and spent it. I said, whoa, it's not good at all what we are doing now. So we create our system, and still we have that thing in our home that we had the kind of book with envelope inside. When it's first envelope, 10%, money for food, money for tax, money for rent, money for ministry, because our culture is relationship culture, not task-oriented culture. Everything is happening in coffee, so you need to spend time with people. So we have money for that thing too. So when we did that, it was helpful for us, that system, and help us to continue life as a family and ministry. But when I joined YM and we opened the base, totally was a new thing for me now, because I need to learn other things. Plus was another life. 90s with 2020 is totally different. How the life is and how it's going and things. But we started a miracle way here in the base, and I think now we're pretty good, healthy in this moment, really. But again, to be a very good administrator, people. And I learned that in my DDS. I don't know, guys, but I learned so much in my DDS when I was students. I learned so much how to be faithful in the small things that grow up in me a lot. So.
Yeah, it seems like the DTS is a great place for us to start talking about these things. If we're all in agreement that actually the way we relate to money exposes a lot about what is real about us, our fears and our areas of self-sufficiency and all those things, then DTS seems like a good place to start with some of those conversations. I was interested in Landa's very clear statement that we are all corruptible, and how it's so easy for us to think, well, yes, I mean, those all out there, but no, me, I'm corruptible. I can make mistakes. And I loved how she shared so vulnerably such a real mistake that she made. And then, of course, we had John and Lynn talking about ways in which we can kind of safeguard ourselves from that corruptibility. Does anyone have any comments about what seemed, you know, what would be your takeaways from that? What seems something to maybe action among us, or to highlight, to notice about what was said there in terms of the ways that we safeguard ourselves from our corruptible nature?
Well, just to reinforce that, it's Lando used to come and teach on our business's mission courses, and there would always be someone who said, "Oh, we can't get involved in business. What about corruption?" And she would just laugh and say, "You know, corruption is sin. We're all sinful. Sin is everywhere in every sphere. And so if you don't get involved with something because of sin, then you're not going to be able to do anything." So first of all, I love that she brought that out, that we're all corruptible, that corruption is everywhere, because it's sin. And so we must, it just reinforcing the point that she made, and then John and Lynn also made, is that we must handle sometimes large sums of money. And so to have these systems of accountability and avoiding conflicts and just having good systems, I just want to when Alket was and Sharon was speaking, I think this is where we need to emphasize the different gifts in the body of Christ. Some people are really administratively gifted, and we need those people to come and help us build good systems into what we're doing as YWAM leaders. And we need administrators as well as we need visionaries, and we need to build teams where those sort of things are really, especially if you've got a big operation with property and we're doing it for the long term, you need people who can come alongside you to build systems for you, good accounting, just good practices when it comes to handling money. And John and Lynn both highlighted some of the good ones that you can start with.
Sharon, do you have any thoughts about that in general? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but also about the difference or the similarities maybe that there are between being small teams with relatively small amounts of money and big teams with relatively large amounts of money. Is it just all the same? Or is it different? What's your experience been?
What I was going to add on to Joe's, the thing that I saw in all the Landa's, and then also the articles that Lynn did and John, was the word transparency comes up all the time, and how key transparency is. And in that, I think to have transparency, one thing we have to do more of, and what I have tried to do, is to not let finances or money have such a stigma of how, you know, oh, we can't talk about that, or if I talk about money, it means I don't have any faith, or any, you know, some people have shame over talking about finances. But if you make it normal, and it's normal to talk about, you know, the financial part of it, then it's easier to be transparent, I feel. And I really think that's that and the kind of what Landa was saying, like as leaders, we have to understand accounting and accounts, even if money's not our thing. So even if it's a small team where we have a little bit, or if it's a large campus ministry, it's still the same. Like, you're still, where's my money coming from? Where am I spending it? And I think maybe with the larger situations, you might have more voices of where the money needs to be spent and working through that, versus a smaller team. If it's just, you know, me and a co-leader, or it's this thing where like two choices, whereas with something bigger. But overall, it's still the same. It's knowing, it's being honest about those. And I think as a mission, we can definitely grow just in little things like training. And because I think a lot of people, they might have this stigma to not talk about it because they don't feel like they know how to do it, or they didn't grow up in that. And so I think if we can take away that, then the transparency is easier.
Yes. Good point. Thank you. Alket, anything to add about these kind of principles for stewarding money well, and how they keep us out of hot water? They keep us from making mistakes.
What we shared before is the same thing for me, is transparency, and how trustworthy you are in your team, and how we are open with each other as we talk for that in a personal level or in a base level thing. And it would be good that everything, if someone asks, is ready in computer, all the receipt, all the bills, everything, so people can see what they want to see. Is there.
Yeah.
You can ask me now, and I have a receipt really 10 years ago. Ask me the date, ask me the amount, and I will bring it to you. Yeah. I want to add something for we spoke a little bit for corruption. Every heart is easy to be corrupt. Every heart, really. It depends when we stand for that and how our decision. Again, I'm speaking from the side of the country are developed now, in process of developing, or were under the communism before. So when really the corruption is more higher than Western side, and sometimes Christians really are in a really dilemma thing. For example, let's say someone has a daughter who is sick, and he will go in a public hospital, and we know the corruption is there. So how we will relate to that? It's a lot of questions. And sometimes I have leaders said, what to do? I will not leave my daughter to die there. I will pay the money. Can be. But on the other side, really, I pray all the time, God, don't bring this situation to me. If that happens, protect me. Let's go maybe in a private hospital. This amount I need to pay. That's it. But many people have struggled for that, really, guys. It's not just what I'm saying. It's Christian world.
Yeah.
And how we'll decide what we believe and what we stand for that. I have a little story. Really, some years ago, I was wrong driving. I didn't saw it really, the sign there. Police told me he wanted to put the fine, but in the end, anyway, he said he wanted the coffee, the $5 coffee thing. I don't know what's happened. I give it to him. So I went to the car, but I not turned on the car at all. He saw me. He came to me. He said, "Why not go?" I came out. I said, "Sorry, you don't know me who I am. I am a Christian. I'm leaving the church now, and I want to say that I don't want to feed your corruption, and I don't want to lose my peace with God. So please give me back my $5, and I'll pay the fine." He was talking. He said, "What? He gave me $5 back." He said, "You're free to go." So sometimes God check our heart where we stay. Really, it's our decision in that. So really, it will come different times in our life when we need to make decisions. Sometimes for sure we will fail. Sometimes we will, we will have victory. But it's kind of different season. God will check our heart because He wants us to be pure in that thing.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, and it occurs to me that one of the things in the first part of our discussion that caught my attention a couple of times was in the area of fundraising, trusting God for our finances, and that often we have to wait, don't we? And I don't know what your experience is of waiting for God to meet a need or waiting for some kind of provision. I know in my life, those waiting times have often been so formational. God does stuff in waiting times. And it seems like with finances and other kinds of provision, waiting for God's timing is often part of our story. I don't know if anyone has just a thought or a comment to add to that. I'm sure there are people watching this discussion and reading through, watching the materials on the website who are in periods of waiting for finances, and it can be a testing time.
One thing I was thinking of, I think this is applicable to this, but I was reminded of just a few months ago, these people I didn't know invited me over for dinner, and they were asking me about what I do. And so I just started sharing about my life and how I live on faith, really. and just started sharing some of my own personal stories of how God miraculously provided for specific things in different ways. And I was reminded when I was kind of thinking about finances of how rich we are in our organization with these stories of provision after the waiting, or like so rich. We have so many stories that we can generously share with other people. And just talking with this couple who are not YWAMers, they go to a church, but you know, I don't know where they are in their faith or things like that, but just how in awe they were of the things that God had done in my life, and how I think as YWAMers, the thing, if we take away the stigma of talking about finances and actually just talk about money and how God provides it and things like that, we can, allow people to experience that richness with us.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Sharon. Alket or Joe, any thoughts on that?
The question is, why for some people it's easy and they have support, and for some people it's hard and it will wait. I think behind that for sure is God for sure want to teach us. We want to grow in faith with him, to see him in action, but sometimes he maybe wait, or he want to see us in action too.
Yeah.
And I have different times that I'm waiting just a little bit. For me, my life is different. I said to you that in the beginning that I have really that faith that he spoke when I was a young Christian, what will be my life. But sometimes you wait, you don't see what is going on, but we don't see because we are in a struggle. We see only sometimes physically, not spiritually. But every time I think is that the hidden big hands from the Lord behind is reflecting and doing what is in his purpose in the right time, in the right moment. And the story can come up with that thing. But everything is going a perfect way, and we will be amazed in the end how he do things. Just the story from the Bible from Israel. So he wanted to teach them how to have faith in the wilderness before they go to the land of the honey and milk. And that is maybe for some people it's long time, some people it's short. For some people it's just one prayer, the money comes, and for some people they struggle and struggle and struggle. And for sure we need to check our heart, motivation, the goals and the things, but in the end he will leave us. He never will leave us, and he will absolutely bless us. The thing.
I'm just reminded of what Landa said, you know, that we need to do the work, and it's often God will provide for us, but not if we neglect the things that we're supposed to be doing. And I think a lot of, like, if you read Jesus' stories of miracles, a lot of it is like a collaboration between Jesus bringing a supernatural intervention, but the people in the story were doing something as well. They were giving the loaves of fishes, they were bathing themselves in the pool, or they were doing something physical. And it was a sort of a creative collaboration between what the Lord was saying to that person, and that step of faith, like touching the garment or lowering the body through the roof. And it was that kind of natural faith and obedience coming together with the sort of supernatural provision. And so I think there is that sort of, what are we supposed to do?
Yes.
And then sometimes that's just not, it's not clear cut. I mean, and when it comes to money, our emotions are often involved, and it's sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but being real, when we're really desperate for money and we're crying out to God, I mean, it's hard sometimes to discern clearly what we're supposed to do. I mean, that's, you know, because our emotions are involved, and we feel, and maybe that's the way the Lord wants to teach us in these difficult moments.
Yeah, thank you. And which makes me think, it's another nudge that we need one another, right? You know, when we're finding it hard to discern because we're feeling kind of emotionally wrung out over a particular situation, we need one another and one another's support and prayers. We have come to the end of our time. I wonder if you've got any final burning comments or thoughts that any of you want to add before we close. No?
I think one thing that I think of is a lot of times people hear the word systems or planning or forethought or processes, and they automatically kind of like glaze over, or they think that's not of the Lord. But I feel like we just have to keep saying, like, those words by no means that the Holy Spirit is out of the picture, or that you can't dream or have vision, because I think we serve a God who is all about the, you know, taking the little things and developing the process or the system. And I think there's room for both, and that even if you keep a budget, or you have to be careful with your finances and what you're spending with it, there's still room for the Holy Spirit to come in and to lead and direct. So I think at least what I've experienced with people, when you talk about finances and you know, all those words and things that come with it, they always feel like it has to be this way, or, you know, this way, but it doesn't. It's yeah,
and even the people that we have on the call today, I mean, such different experiences, such different ways of interacting with, experiencing money and provision, and, you know, there's place for all of it in God and in our walk with God. So that's a really beautiful place to close, I think, Sharon. Thank you.
The words say, sorry.
Go ahead, Alket.
The words say no money, no funny, but in the Christian world is you pray, I pay. So the idea is we pray to God, He will do it. He will pay.
That's great. Well, maybe that's an even better place to close.
I'm gonna write that down, Alket.
Just before we finish up here, for those who are on the call and for those who watch this as a recording, a reminder to you that we have our online leadership summit, which takes place every quarter. We have that happening on Monday, and it's from 2:15 this time until 4:30 Central European time. And our topic is the faith life of millennials. So we're going to be hearing from Ruth Perrin, who has got a lot of experience and has written and researched the faith life of millennials, and is going to be sharing with us at that event. And there will be opportunities for questions and engaging with the topic. So for anyone who works with young people, who's intrigued as to their different, I think we've lost Jo. Oh, there she is. Oh, we're all coming off spotlight. I thought I was losing you, but we're all coming off spotlight. So please do join us for that online event that is taking place on Monday, this coming Monday, 2:15 to 4:30 European time. Thank you all for joining us, and may your finances and your relationship with God in the midst of your finances be blessed.